Okay.
I can't see any applicants. Am I looking at the wrong place?
Give me a second. They're gonna come in under attendees and I'll get you going. Give me 1 second.
Is he coming back?
We all are. So, I guess the thing to do. So Chenault, I guess the thing to do is to call out the first item you want to have on the agenda and then ask the folks to raise their hand who's here for it.
I don't believe we
Right,
received.
there are people online then.
There are,
Yes.
they're under attendees. You have to
Look
come.
at the attendees.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see a spreadsheet with the presenters. Perhaps I missed it. In any event, I think it's just best to ask them to raise their hands.
Okay, we can begin then.
Mhm.
And Brian, Mark, you're going to up.
Brian and I'll take care of it. If I have to step out, I'll give it to Brian.
Right.
This is the Manhattan Community Board #2 landmarks meeting.
Andy.
First of 2 meetings for the months of May.
Doesn't count towards quorum.
And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 applications to hear, and there'll be one on Monday evening. I will say for the record, there is not a quorum present, and so the wisdom of this, the ones who are here, will be presented to the community board to adopt as the resolutions to be considered. The first application is 155 Sullivan Street. Would whoever is here from Sullivan Street please raise your hands and
That's Janine Smith. I got her.
speak? The application is to legalize the installation of HVAC in front of a primary facade, install movable planters, relocate and replace statuary, pave courtyard, and install signage. Okay, we're waiting for the person to be.
All right, Janine, you have to accept the promotion to panelist.
Would it be possible to go second as our client is joining and having some trouble?
Oh, okay, yes.
Says,
512 Broadway is the person here from it. We'll see. 512 Broadway. Who is from 512 Broadway?
Lydia Jimenez is here.
The application is to legalize the installation of signage without LPC permits. Linda, are you from Broadway?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lydia. How are you?
Which are you for? Which application?
512 Broadway.
Fine. Okay. Thank you. Please, you can share your screen and when you're ready.
Okay, do you see the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Lydia.
Okay, hi. My name is Lydia Jimenez. I'm from All In Permit Consultants. I'm here on behalf of Cotton On and Triangle Signs. Today, we're presenting 2 existing transparent LED display signs, which are suspended window mounted with a setback of 21 inches from the window glaze. So I'm just going to walk you through. This is the property on the first page, showing the landmark status in the Soho cast iron districts. These are the photos I have of changes over time. This is the property over here, where it says Premier Textile Company. Here we go, continuing on to more historical photos. And then these are more recent from 2013 and 2023 with the facade changes. And this is what we're currently at. Our current conditions, LPC has approved the cotton on wall sign and the awnings. We're here today for the LED displays in those windows. So the display signs are, this is a floor plan of the space. And schematics of the size of the signs, which is the sign area is 64 square feet, where the window area is at 95 square feet. The LED displays take up 64% of the window height and 94% of the window width. This is a little bit closer.
I missed how big the window is.
The window is
Square feet.
square feet wise is 95 square feet,
Thank you.
95.32.
I'm sorry, please continue.
Okay, and I have some schematics of the window displays. They're aluminum frames. They're fairly transparent. They're flexible. They can be wall mounted or in this case, they're suspended. And these are some samples of applications. And then this is currently the measurement from the glass and the installation picture taken on August 15th, 2023. So the display signs are fabricated with aluminum and is less than an inch thick. The attended operating hours for the LED displays are between 9:30 a.m. and to 10 p.m. When not powered, the grids are fairly transparent and the interior of the space can be seen from the exterior when they're not powered. The displays will be mostly used for imagery and graphics, though they do intend to use words such as BOGOs, established as 1961, 60%, etc., upon special events. In most cases, the content is going to be updated once a month, unless there's a promotion or event that comes up for a specific time period. There is an intention to use it as a video content or a slideshow, if allowed, of still images when available. The brightness of the screen can be adjusted. And as I stated, these were installed as of August 2023. It wasn't an intention of installing them without a permit. They were unaware that LPC requested these types of signs are considered as partitions. So they did install it 21 inches set back from the window glaze. Unfortunate period that the new guidelines was published in August 2023 when the installation was occurred. If you have any questions, thank you.
One thing I just didn't hear clearly. Did you say they had been moved back from their original position so that they're now 21 inches back?
No, they have always been 21 inches back.
Okay. And the other question is the images are either static or a slideshow, but not animated. Is that correct?
It can be either instance. Whatever they'll be allowed to do is what they will move forward with.
Okay, but the screens are capable of any of those things.
Yes.
Okay. From the committee, are there questions?
Yes, thank you, Lydia. I went by there and saw the installation, and I know that 18 inches is a normal requirement for LPC for setting back from the window for signage. This is a little different because of the animation. And so I'm glad to hear about the hours of operation, that it won't be going all night or even late into the night. And then the brightness you mentioned was adjustable. And there too, that's something that we're very concerned about, that these displays get so bright that it's very distracting in the neighborhood, far beyond just storefront. And so I'm wondering how it could be that we have some idea of the brightness that is intended. It certainly, I went by there during the daytime, so obviously the brightness didn't affect being on the sidewalk or across the street or anything. But I don't know what it would be like at night. So I wonder what you could say about the nighttime brightness.
They, as I said, it can be dimmed down if it is found to be too bright. As you can see in these samples here, the brightness is not too far. They're intended to be inside or exterior.
So then it would depend upon complaints, I guess.
Yeah, I have a question apropos of that. Hi, Lydia. I'm Susan. I'm the chair of the committee. I have a couple of questions for you. One is piggybacking on what Brian just asked, in terms of, this kind of, if there are complaints, what is the mechanism for that? I mean, and who might the complaints be from, and what would the mechanism be? Are you speaking of if there were complaints by LPC, or if there were complaints by the neighborhood residents who have to live with this every day?
It would be a combination of both. These LED displays can be adjusted remotely. So it's not a matter of a technician having to go there to the site and doing it manually. They can be done remotely.
Right, but my question is more specific than that, is who would have the standing to request this dimming? Because the fact that these units have the capability is one thing, but what would trigger the actual diminution of the brightness? Would it be, people in the community say, whoa, this is really, too much, and how would people be able to have a relationship to this?
It is certainly LPC, if the community board, I'm sure I can ask the people who adjust these displays to maybe have some sort of either survey or information line that they can call and keep track of who's complaining on what aspect.
Right, so that's not really addressed yet. Okay.
No, it's not just.
Thanks. And I also, I'm interested when you shared with us that these are considered partitions by the commission.
Correct.
So does that mean that they're not considered signage, or is there some hybrid signage partition thing that they fall under? What do they fall under at LPC, I guess is my question. If they're
under LPC, because of the size of them, they're considering them as a partition.
It has to do with the percentage of the window that's essentially
Yes.
blocked from the interior.
So they're considered partitions. Okay. And again, sort of related to my first question, moving images are extremely distracting and aggressive, even more so than the static ones. And when you say if allowed, you would move to some sort of moving image, slideshow, video, whatever. Again, who's the decider of the allowance of movement?
It can be considered as a condition of approval with LPC or the community board.
Okay. And do you have other examples within the district that you can point to of this kind of partition / illuminated screen?
I do
Right.
not. I looked around, I asked LPC if they had any specific examples. We did not come across anything.
No, so you've got really nothing to point at in the historic district as a precedent.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to ask about the timing. You said 9:30 to 5
9:30 to 10 p.m.
to 10. Okay. And that is again like the brightness and the kind of image that's shown, something that is programmable, right?
Yes.
So are you agreeable to having this as a stipulation
Yes.
that it not be more than this? 10, we'll discuss in the about the nighttime, but 10 is generally a curfew hour for things like noise and closing sidewalk cafes. So I think we might consider that that's okay. Andy, you have anything?
I have another question.
Okay.
Should there, should this be approved downtown? And should there be a mechanism for complaints? Who controls the signage here? I mean, it's not done internally from Cotton on. Is there like a third-party sign company then that would be the responsible party, or is it Cotton on?
It would be a third-party company that.
And where is that company located?
That company is based in, let's see, I believe Maryland. Yes, Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, thank you.
Is this company making the decision, or are they simply carrying out the orders of the tenant?
They're carrying out the orders of the tenant.
Okay, so they're not the deciding people.
Correct.
Anything else for this?
I think we can move to the community, Chenault.
Okay.
Let's see if we have any raised hands. I think Pete raised his hand, Pete Davies, I believe.
Pete, you go ahead and unmute.
Go ahead, Pete, thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, this is an interesting situation because it's something entirely new. And I just want to point out that the doorways have transoms. The windows do not, and therefore the opening, the window space is huge. And it seems, based on the typical signage limitation, that is takes into consideration the window size. Here we're talking about, because they're so oversized, we're talking about a partition. What is the allowable percentage of window blockage that is allowed if it were a sign? I mean, yeah, if it was a display rather than a partition.
It cannot block more than 50% of the display window,
Okay,
and the horizontal dimension cannot exceed 75%.
okay. So in this case, it clearly exceeds 50% of the oversized window. So I think that's something to consider. I also noticed that the store closes at 9 p.m. according to the store website. So I think that should be taken into consideration when talking about the hours of operation for this. I don't know what more to say. It seems they've found something that kind of works its way into its own little area, and therefore we're setting precedent. And therefore the LPC has said, community, please help us figure this out. So that's what we're kind of stuck with. And I hope we can come up with a good solution. Thank you.
All right, Zach Weinstein has his hand raised. Mark, thanks. Thanks, Pete.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, yeah, my name is Zach Weinstein. This is somewhat outside my area, and don't have a granular knowledge of the Soho district, but I'm sort of concerned on principle for what this represents, and it gets to the fact that this is essentially signage that's taking up the entire window, which my understanding is does violate at least the spirit of LPC regulations. I mean, windows historically have functioned to let light into interior retail spaces or workspaces and allow passersby to visually see what's going on inside that interior space. And to basically block off the entirety of the window with signage, works completely against that and turns the facade of these buildings into billboards, essentially. I mean, I think would be a very troubling trend and a development which I hope the committee will sort of seriously consider pushing back against. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Zach. Well said. All right, is there anybody else from the community who wishes to speak? All right, since there are no other, I actually have one more question, Lydia, which is, in their non-illuminated state, is it full transparency? What is the effect that's created when they're not illuminated? How transparent really are they?
They're semi-transparent. You can see inside the space when they're not illuminated.
So does it give the effect of like a security gate or
Yes.
grim?
As you can see, this is what it looks like from the inside.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, do we have the first application ready or should we move on?
Why don't we ask?
155 Sullivan applicants. Are you all here now? If so, would you raise your hands, please?
Lydia, if you would take down your screen, your share screen.
Yeah, Father Mike.
Father Mike, church.
Okay, looks like Father Mike is here.
Hi, everyone. It's Father Mike.
Oh, Father,
Hi, everyone.
is the architect here?
I believe my architects are here. There's Janine.
Hi, Janine.
Good evening, everyone. All right, thanks for having us back. Here for round two. Just a second. I'm just going to share a screen.
Since there were so many changes, it's probably better that we hear the whole thing and you can go quickly through the air conditioner part.
Yes.
Well, that was basically understood last time.
Sure, no problem. Okay.
Well, here we go. Good. Looks like number 10, Janine.
That's very exciting. All right, here we are. All right, again, thank you for
Okay, so how am I doing this?
just move myself off the screen. There we go. All right, thanks everyone for taking the time to include us in tonight's presentation. So we're just gonna, as you said, kind of review everything. You know, there's a good amount of scope here, and we'll kind of breeze through the AC. Yeah, so I believe the board is well familiar with the church. I believe you guys also operate out of there occasionally. So we are looking at this current courtyard, and kind of updating it, restoring the vandalized statue of Our Lady of Fatima.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Janine, but the audio is peculiar. Is there some adjustment you can make to the audio on your side? I don't know if it's getting further away from the microphone or closer to it or something, but we're not hearing everything clearly from you.
I think if you get closer, you might be able to be, Janine.
And we'd like to.
Sure, let's try. Is that any better? Better or worse?
That's better.
Better. Okay, great.
You're closer, yes.
All right. So, you know, we're here mostly to talk about the existing courtyard along the West Houston Street side of the church. As some of you may know, we have, you know, experienced some vandalism last year. As you can see in this photo, the statue of Our Lady Fatima is not present. And we're looking to get her back and also provide her with hopefully a safer environment. So just quickly, last time we presented from our set of drawings. So we've kind of stretched them out and cut and paste them a bit in this presentation to hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand. These are all the changes that we're proposing here at the courtyard. So we're looking to take what is the existing base, demolish it, remove it, provide a new base, slightly pulled back to line it up with the existing statues, provide new paving at the courtyard to legalize the existing HVAC units that are installed, as well as provide them with, you know, a planter screen to diminish their visual impact, as well as install a new sign. And since our last meeting, that sign placement has been adjusted. Before we were intending to install the sign along the church here. The sign, we're now proposing to install that sign here along the bulkhead, a little bit closer to ground level. So one of the primary
what am I looking for?
Sorry. One of the primary comments we got last time was that the existing asphalt is not the ideal pavement. So we're currently looking at a stone paver situation. We don't have an approved sample just yet, as we don't have a contractor on the project. We're trying to get through the legalization first and propose an actual sample through LPC. But the intention here, kind of going back to this plan, is to legalize this sidewalk a little bit, allow for proper egress dimensions, which we do not currently have, and create a bit nicer of a courtyard below, so that visually and also for any parishioners using the space, it's a nice, lovely space along Houston. This is kind of our existing conditions. So we've kind of shown you a couple of photos of proposed options. This is what we currently have. Our asphalt is significantly worn, has created some low spots, which has contributed to some leak issues and ponding. There's also the tread of the space is not super conducive walking safely. Yes, you can see quite a bit of divots. And just overall, not the presentation that we're hoping to give the community. So kind of with that in mind, you can see this is the existing base where Our Lady of Fatima previously stood right here where my cursor is. So we're looking to take this entire base, slide it back in line with the other two statues. You can see that statue kind of here in the foreground and the white statue in the background, so that all three statues, kind of line up visually in one line, and then create a bit of a more historic presentation for Our Lady of Fatima. So just quickly, we're going to touch on the damages that were done here. Don't want to spend too much time here. Obviously a disgrace, and something we hope to never have to experience again. And just kind of get right into what we're looking to do now. The base itself, we're looking to replicate the existing stone base, so keep that stone veneer that's existing and historic, and translate that across the larger base. So this base has been raised so that Our Lady of Fatima has gone from standing at about 3.5 feet tall to standing at 6 feet. So she'll be notably above where she was, hopefully creating a bit of a deterrent for any nefarious intention, as well as providing this grotto, which, as you can see here in this photo, is a traditional way in which the statue is presented, kind of across the world. So we'll move on from the base to the sign. So just a little history here. This light up sign was installed up until 2022. We're unclear as to when exactly it was installed, but we know that it's been installed for several decades, at least 3 decades. That sign was removed, and now we're looking to put a sign that just identifies the church as St. Anthony of Padua Church here along the bulkhead. If you're familiar with the church, the elevator that goes into the cellar is right here. So the sign would go right above. And we can take a look at that here. So we're intending to move the existing bust over to accommodate the sign, put in new bronze or brass lettering to replicate as shown. And then we will include new lighting to light both objects rather than just the one. And I guess in case anyone is wondering how the sign will be installed, our intention is to install with a pin mount straight into the brick mortar, which facades are our bread and butter. So this is like a well-proven and approved detail. So we're confident in the longevity of that and how well it will manage the brick historically. And then, like I said, we're just going to move quickly kind of on this, since we talked about this thoroughly last time. At some point, we believe in 2021, these HVAC units were installed at the local courtyard. Just to give a quick context as to where they are, you can see them right back here, kind of near the bus stop. Our understanding is that this was not done with us, with a different consultant, that they were put through LPC. However, they did not complete the process, but were never approved, but were given, but were installed regardless. So we're here looking to kind of legalize that. And as a, kind of a sign, we recognize that this is visually, there is quite a bit of a negative impact. So we're looking to diminish that by providing an evergreen garden solution, which kind of models the planters that had been installed in the courtyard in previous decades. So I'll just open for questions for you guys. It's kind of the overview of what we're looking to do.
Okay, a couple things. Could you go back to the depiction of the proposed paving?
Yes.
Would you like for us to express a preference about this? I think we might have one.
We would like for you guys to provide any comments that you believe are relevant.
It's sort of an A/B choice. And also I gather that this is a simple installation without the hard lines that are shown in the catalog version.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Then the other. Oh, could you show the grotto, please?
Yes. Yes, of course.
And can you enlarge the picture so we can see the detail more clearly?
Sure.
The example, the other side, the example.
This
Right.
example.
You're reproducing this look of the constructed of stone, presumably. And how is that being replicated?
The general look is correct, yes. However, the massing of this is quite significantly thicker than we're intending. Our intention is to create a 9-inch grotto on the back. This here is likely 2 feet, so it's about half of. We're proposing half of this thickness.
Right.
But the general view is similar. Yes.
On the drawing.
Sorry, say again, please.
Could you just slide over and show us on the drawing how that?
Having trouble understanding, Janine.
Okay. Are we to assume that it's not as, is it this rather regular pattern or the more random selection of the example?
The pattern would be closer to what is existing, so a bit more random, however, not nearly as three-dimensional as these stones are.
Understand. You did say the sign on the side of the nave is being removed.
This has already been removed.
Okay.
This was removed a couple of years back.
And is it the same? It looks like the image is in a different place on the new sign. Is that an image that's being removed and the whole thing is new?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
It looks as though there's some sort of an image on the area of the new sign in the existing photograph.
That's correct. So this, I'm not sure what to call it, sculpture, I guess you could say, is currently mounted and has been, Father Mike, feel free to correct me, I believe for 20 years. So we're intending to keep this here. We just want to kind of slide it to the side. Right now it has quite a bit.
The existing image and new letters.
Exactly. So the image is not new, just the location, I suppose. And then just come in beside it, and just further identify, differentiate this church from any other in the neighborhood.
So it's a sense historic if it's been there so long.
Yes, I certainly would believe so.
Those the images are the trade centers, the Twin Towers. So that's how long it's been up there for. It's been at least quite a number of years prior to that. So at least 30 years.
I guess kind of relevant to the sign, we did also have a meeting with LPC last week, kind of a pre-meeting of what we were intending to present here today. And they did appreciate this placement of the sign much more than the previous recommendation, which was to kind of replicate this sign. So for what that's worth, if that was important to the board at all.
That particular sign, if I can add, where it says peace to the world, actually said St. Anthony's Church, and underneath it said Franciscan Friars. And during the Christmas season, when the manger was out there for the Christmas season, they changed it from St. Anthony Church to Peace to the World. And obviously, it looks like in this particular picture, they never changed it back again. Yeah, it's kind of unsightly, and I would not want to go back to that at all. So,
And I
that's
thought,
what- yeah. So that's the history of that piece to the world. That was there for the Christmas season, when the manger goes up there on Houston between December and January. And normally it would say St. Anthony of Padua Church, and underneath it would say the Franciscan Friars. So we want to completely eliminate that. We were told to take it down. They took it down, and we'd rather move it. We'd rather have a sign over where the relief is right now of St. Anthony and the Twin Towers, right there.
Are there questions from committee members?
Yeah, Janine, I have one question, and that is regarding the material of that's replacing the asphalt. I guess it's still not known then what that will be, because the application says natural stone or cast stone. There are a couple of different patterns there. So I imagine you're waiting for some more information or something, because typically when we review, I mean, listen, we're thrilled that you're improving this space, and, that's wonderful. But typically when we review a project like this, the specifications are, well, specific. So I'm just wondering where you are, or if you can tell us anything about what that surfacing is.
Certainly. So, we also would like to be as specific with you as possible. The reality, I think, here is that going into selection of the stone will really determine quite a bit. And typically we don't get to that step until, we have a contractor, we've sold the project, if you will. And then we get kind of like quarry samples, and we adjust according to that, especially when dealing with the natural stone. So there are definitely some question marks in that regard. The recommendation from LPC was to go ahead with the natural stone. They've all but told us no cast stone.
Not surprised, yeah.
Right. They kind of gave us the two options, replace what's there, which is considered non-historic regardless, the asphalt.
Right.
Or go back with a natural stone or even a brick paving. So we are definitely in a place of change in that regard. However, the more that we develop that, obviously we would include the community board on that as well. So if the situation is, if the board feels that particular element is not refined enough at present, we would drop it from the application and return once we've gotten through it with LPC.
I understand. Okay, thank you for that answer, Janine. Appreciate it.
Of course.
What we can do in the meantime is make a recommendation based on what we've seen and know.
Yeah, we can figure that out during the business
We can
session.
have a preference, and then
As you can see, if I can interrupt, as you can see
and that
underneath
may serve the whole thing, and you would need to come back. But it depends on how much it varies from what we've seen. Okay, other questions?
Can I
Father
answer?
Mike wanted to speak. Father Mike, yes, please.
Yes, as you can see, looking at the picture that's in front of us right now, you can see the stone design that's right in front of the elevator. But taking a look at the right-hand side of the church, just off to the corner there, you can see that's a kind of different design. And the one on the right-hand side, the extreme right, also continues on to the left-hand side, past the elevator, along the side there. I wouldn't mind, and that was, again, I think what Janine is asking, see along that whole side there, that's kind of, they look like oblong or anything else like that. I wouldn't mind replicating that. If you're asking for opinions, that's what I'd like to be able to get. Janine, I don't know if we can do that, but I think that's what we're looking for, that kind of look. Since it is natural stone and it goes along with the well, it gets rid of the asphalt, number one, but it also it kind of coordinates with what's actually going on in the building. And then,
Yeah,
to
to piggyback on that, Father, if, if we were to do this, just kind of speaking candidly for the board here, if we were to do a kind of field stone approach,
Yeah.
like like what currently exists here at this
Sure.
water table,
Yeah.
a lot of that would kind of come down to the size of the pieces we get from the quarry, how they lay. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be a situation where they're able to replicate one-to-one exactly what we have on drawings.
No.
It would be a bit more organic and natural in the way that it's laid. As you can kind of see here, like no stones are kind of laid in the same way.
No, that was
So
137 years ago.
a bit of variety there.
And typically paving stone would not be the same as construction stone of the base of a building of this era, so that the idea is one that goes with it, not necessarily a reproduction of it, I would think.
Yeah, that's correct. And you can even see the truth of that, like relative to, the original part of the church and then this addition. They tried to replicate it, but it's not quite there.
I understand that. So, just to clarify, we will come up with a recommendation about the paving stones, and then, if it needs further review, we can do that as a discrete, brief presentation next time on
Understood.
the committee.
Okay, great. Brian, did you have anything?
Well, it sounds like Chanel would like to table the discussion till the business session.
Is there anybody, Andy, do you have anything? Yes. All right, so we'll go to the public and, I just wanted to make sure Andy didn't have anything.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, Chanel, don't thank Janine yet.
We have public members.
Members of the public who wish to speak. I think we've got Pete Davies.
Yes,
ahead,
thank you. If you could just slide this image over, so we can see the letter. Just curious, the depth of the letter is 3/4 of an inch.
That's correct.
The pin appears to be about the same, about 3/4 of an inch. So the letter would actually, the surface of the letter would be about 1.5 inches away from the surface of the building.
There would be a small space between the back of the letter and the front of the stone, if that, the front of the brick, sorry, if that's what you're asking.
Understood. And so this is not necessarily 1-to-1, so it would be less than 1.5 inches. But yes, there'd certainly be a small space. And I'm just curious, because of the next application that we're going to be looking at, is this tend to be the standard setup for halo in-mount lettering with this depth of letter and the length of the pin? This may be a question more for the committee than for you, Lydia. But I'm just curious on what the standard is for a halo lit pin mount signage.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I could necessarily answer on a standard. I will say that we developed this particular detail with Manhattan Signs. Who's done 1 million of these across the city. So we're kind of deferring to their expertise in the regard to this particular detail.
Great, thank you very much.
I do have.
Oh, and Brian has one more question. Brian.
Yes, so that brings up the question of to Janine. Is there, what lighting is there either for the sign or for the statues in the courtyard? Any lighting at all, exterior lighting?
Father, can you speak to the signs, the
Yes.
lighting that's existing?
Well, as you can see, right now, looking at the sign itself, there's a light there centered underneath the relief and the letters. That light right now serves as a light that goes, it's two-sided. Basically, it goes up and it goes down. It lights the entrance to the elevator, so people, if they use it in the evening, and it also it throws some light onto the relief and the lettering. I don't think we want to, I'm not envisioning using any backlighting to the lettering, because I don't think it's necessary. That existing fixture right there gives ample enough lighting to not only, again, lighting the entrance, which is more important than the actual lettering itself, but I think it gives enough light in the evening to be able to tell what it is. There's no identification on the building at this particular point anywhere except for the front door, and those are 3-inch letters. Which
Right.
you literally,
Just to add to that, in our meeting with LPC last week that I mentioned earlier, LPC has asked us to look at replacing this light as they said they consider this unseemly. So, but the intention is to put in a new fixture in the same location.
So you're updating what's there, essentially.
Correct. So the intention being the same, to cast up and cast down.
Okay, so what about statues?
the statues, at this particular point, as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 light posts that have been there. God only knows. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. And they've been there. They basically light up the building, the entire side of the building, from dusk till dawn, I think, probably. We aren't planning on putting any additional lighting on there. Again, it's ample lighting for the manger scene that goes out. The manger scene being kind of, it's there for 6 to 8 weeks for the Christmas season, and it gives ample light to whatever's on the ground, the statues that are there existing, but it also takes care of. So again, I'm not envisioning any other additional lights, if that's the question.
That is,
Okay, I'm not anticipating. No, I think those lights are more than ample. They're not super bright. They're pointed at the building. I know that historically that side of the building was the side of the church considered, and there were tenement buildings all along there until they tore the tenement buildings down to widen Houston. If historically, that's what I'm speaking about. So, I mean, that's why we kind of like that big up. If you stand across the street, it's a massive building. So we try to, I'd like to be able to one day soon, God willing, to be able to light the church from the inside, so you can see the stained glass, but that's another application.
Well, you're very fortunate, because I'm dealing with a situation at a church where a building was built where it didn't exist. And
I know.
it's a difficulty with the stained glass. Thank you all.
Forward to seeing that application.
Okay, we will then leave. We'll write a complete resolution, and then if you find with the commission that you're going to vary greatly from it, then come back with the paving next time.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you both very much. We really appreciate you coming back.
Thank you. God bless
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Our own private chaplain. 550 Broadway. The application is to legalize exterior wall sign and double-faced banner installation without LPC permits for ground floor tenant. I'm removing the name of the tenant from the application, because that's not.
okay, Matt Kelvin.
Okay, when it's organized and you're ready.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Hi, thank you guys. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. My name is Matt Calvo. I'm here on behalf of Building Brothers and the property owner, as well as the tenant. Have asked me to file to legalize an illuminated wall sign and a banner sign that was installed for the Timberland store. I'm going to share my screen. Everyone can see?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this is the sign. It was installed around 2022, I believe. It is illuminated, but only backlit a halo effect. Itself is built in 1854. Here's a photo I found from 1940, one from 2022, and again in 2023. It's on the east side of Broadway. Here's an image of the storefront. Here's some details about the sign itself with the actual night view of the sign illuminated.
What are the dimensions of it? Just the width and the height?
There's like a backer panel that you can see right here. So that panel, it extends a little bit higher and lower than the letter. That is 1 foot 10 inches high. The letters are and the logo are 18 inches high, 1 foot 6 inches high. And the backer panel is 10 foot 10 wide. I have some pictures down here.
Yeah, I just made a mistake in the typing. How wide is the panel?
10 foot 10 inches.
And the height?
1 foot 5 inches.
And the letters are 18 inches.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have a typo here.
We can be approximate. We don't need to.
Yeah, but I believe that it's roughly between those dimensions, give or take a few inches. The other sign is this banner that's being installed on an existing pole. The banner it says 46 inches by 6'3". And here's some photos. This is what the site looked like post-pandemic. Obviously in pretty bad shape. Previously, I believe it was a bank, an HSBC bank on this side, and this side was part of Banana Republic. And then here's some more pictures of kind of a close-up of the existing pole and the storefront once it was cleaned up. There's a night shot of the sign. It's not in your face, super, glowing illumination. It's a bit subtle, and it's centered over the doorway, which is not in the center of the storefront. It's kind of a unique layout.
Can you say approximately how wide your premises is in the building?
That is a good question. I don't have an exact number, but I would say 20 to 25 feet wide, possibly more. And this is a close-up looking up at the sign where you could get a real good sense of the projection of it. You see here the backer panel it stands out a little, and the letters are offset to allow the halo illumination to shine back on the panel. And that's essentially what they're proposing, is legalizing what is already installed.
Okay.
Any
Questions from the did we see how the banner is hung? I missed that if we did.
Oh, it just slides on. It's a sewn pocket. So
Oh, there, the lower right one. You just scroll up. Okay, so the pole is just appropriate to the sign. Okay.
yeah.
Susan, anybody there have questions?
I have just a quick question. I just want to confirm, Matt, that the sign of that banner is within the LPC current guidelines.
I don't know that it is for a staff level approval. It certainly would not be approved as proposed at a staff level. But it does fall within the outline that LPC has on their website, where they prefer the halo lit illumination versus something that's going to project the light outward like a TV screen or something.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the banner.
Oh, the banner?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Does the banner conform to the size parameters stipulated by LPC?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And also, I didn't quite catch, you said something about the sign not being centered, the Timberland sign?
Correct.
Is that so that the logo at the end is is it just the letters because of the logo at the end and the whole aggregate is?
The main thing I was saying is you see how you could still see these rosettes that are like a decorative feature in the sign band.
I see.
Actually, a second one that's being covered up right here. But in order for the sign to be centered over the entrance, which is directly below, it had to be placed right here versus I'm sure Landmarks would have preferred it be mounted like in between if you were going to
centered
mount.
within the sign band.
Correct.
Rosettes. Okay, that's
Right.
all
So
right.
it's there to be harmonious with the building, with a general building. And then-
Correct. Like it's a very odd layout. They have a door here and then there's another space altogether over here. So neither of them are centered on the building. It's a challenge, but
Yeah, it sort of leaves you hanging. Yeah. Anybody else? Brian? Andy? Pete Davies. Let's move to the public where Pete has a raised hand.
Okay, thank you. Could you put up slide 4 of 8? That one, yeah. So here, what we have is letters that are 3 inches deep.
Yes.
With then the space of 2 more inches.
yes.
And then the pins, which are 4 inches, for a total of 9 inches extending from the surface of the building. So that's quite a bit more than what we usually see with pin-mounted halo lettering. And also, that's all affixed to a box kind of unit that was placed atop the sign band. And if you scroll down to the next image, 5 of 8, that image indicates that box rests within the framework where you pointed out before the rosettes. But if you look at the actual photograph, you'll see that the backing of the lettering extends well beyond or enough beyond that framework that it hides it. So it's not nestled within the existing storefront. It actually blocks something that was there. And that's another probably reason why LPC said, oh, you guys got to come to the public. So my concern here is that this was not done properly. It was not considered in a way that those things could have been fixed beforehand. So now we're in the position where we might have to say, hey, let's legalize this, which only sends the message to other people who might not want to go to LPC for whatever reason, as this applicant apparently didn't want to, where they're just going to put something up that's non-conforming, non-compliant, and then they come back and say, can we get this legalized? So it's bit by bit by bit. And I don't know the answer to that. But it's a real concern, and I appreciate the committee's consideration of all these little bits here that are just off. Thank you.
Take down the line for a minute. I think I missed one point that you were making about a particular way in which the existing sign is non-conforming to the current LPC regs. Would you mind repeating that?
Hello?
Was that directed to me?
Pete, yes, to you, Pete.
Well, it appears that I don't know what the standard letter depth is, if there's a rule about that. Size of the letter. I don't know if there is a requirement that a halo lit sign band fit within the structure of the building or can cover it up. But these are all things that their drawings, their application seem to want to indicate that it was done one way, but then when you look at the real situation, it's a different story.
Okay, so thanks. I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't know if you were citing some particular place where it deviates or whether you were expressing just a general concern that it conform, because of course we don't want to allow things that we wouldn't have ordinarily.
Right, and I think we're at a disservice because we're being told, could you legalize something? And we don't know what the actual code is that is been violated. Because
Right.
it's not included in you
Yeah,
present to the public or what the applicant is presenting.
Yeah, understood. This is the kind of thing we will definitely discuss in our business session. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else? Okay, thank you, Matt. I think we've got what we need. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Okay, next is 7074 Gansevoort Street. The application is to install new signage and lighting and modify the marquee roofing at the Gansevoort Street and Washington Street facades. We heard this application earlier, and the other aspects of it were dealt with and a resolution was written. So this will be an amendment to the previous resolution concerning specifically the marquee, its roofing, and its lighting. When you're ready.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Julie Rosen from Higgins Quaysbarth and Partners. I'm joined this evening by my colleague Shreya Betty, as well as the architects from Atmosphere Design Group. As Chanel mentioned, we first presented this project to you at the April committee meeting and did receive a resolution in support of most aspects of the proposal. But we're back tonight to represent the marquee lighting scope and the roofing scope at tonight's meeting. And I did just want to note that the presentation we have for you tonight is the full presentation, which we'll be presenting at the LPC public hearing. But I will focus particularly on the marquee elements tonight, as well as the updates and clarifications that we've made regarding those elements since last
Could I
fall.
just ask you to verify that there are no meaningful changes in any of the part that we've already?
No changes. No changes. The only thing I will mention is that staff at LPC has confirmed that the storefront infill scope that I presented to you last month, they are going to review that particular scope at staff level.
Okay.
That's the only change. But so just to start, as you may recall, 7074 Gansevoort is a contemporary building. It was completed just in 2021. And as you can see on the maps here, it's located on the south side of Gansevoort at the southwestern edge of the Gansevoort Market Historic District. And as a reminder, Saint Laurent will be occupying all of the retail space in the basement, ground floor, and the second floor of the building. So they're going to have retail along both the Gansevoort Street and the Washington Street frontages. And here we can see that full building in context. And of course, as you know, there's one marquee per elevation. So the proposed elevations here are the same ones that you saw last month. Again, they show the full scope of proposed work, including that storefront infill replacement, which staff is now reviewing, as well as the installation of signage and lighting at the facades and the marquees, and the changes to the roof cladding material of the marquees and the installation of new lighting at the marquees, of course, is also proposed. And we have additional drawings for you later in the presentation that go through all the details for those scopes of work. Just to remind you of the current conditions with some existing views of the 2 street level elevations, Gansevoort Street facade on the top here, and then the Washington Street elevation below. And then a few details of the existing conditions with the details of the marquees on the left and right here. So I do just want to note, the marquees do recall other historic marquees that are found throughout the historic district, but these marquees in design, construction style are very much contemporary in nature and design. So last month, we talked a little bit about the phases of development in the historic district and went through a number of historic and current precedents, largely regarding the signage scope. So I will, just for the sake of time, click through these. These are the exact same slides that you saw last month. We were looking historically at the presence of signage at marquees and building facades throughout the district, as well as other types of signage, parallel and perpendicular signage on building facades throughout the district, and certainly the prevalence of marquees with their various, accumulations of signage and other pertinences historically. And then we also reviewed with you more current context, contemporary context for signage at building marquees and entrances in the historic district, as well as at the upper floors of buildings. But I'll stop here for a minute because I do want to, again, focus on the marquee scope and, to look at the precedents that we found throughout the historic district. And what we found in terms of marquee roofing materials is that there was quite a variety of treatments throughout the historic district. We have a number of photos here that show this range of solid metal, opaque glazing, and transparent glazing, all being utilized in both contemporary and historic applications. And we see our proposal at 7074 very much fitting within this range of, design types and materials that we see elsewhere. We also see lighting suspended from marquees in the historic district in a range of fixture styles. So I think 2 particularly relevant examples here. The image on the right with the variety of hanging fixtures, that is at 52 Gansevoort Street, which is just down the street from 7074. And then on the left here at 5860 9th Avenue, this is another canopy in the district that has very similar lighting to what we're proposing for our project as well. So that was a helpful reference point for us, again, in terms of looking at the historic district context. So these next few slides are the exact same ones that we presented to you last month, again, showing the full scope of the proposal. So on this slide, we have the existing and proposed Gansevoort Street elevations and the existing and proposed Washington Street elevations. As you recall, we also had these enlarged ground floor details and plans for you as well, showing existing and proposed on Gansevoort, and then existing and proposed on Washington Street. We had also presented these signage details for the signage adjacent to the entry door on Gansevoort Street, as well as the banner signs that are proposed for the second floor. We also reviewed with you the non-illuminated signage that's proposed for the faces of each marquee. And we had also presented this section detail, which has been updated since our presentation to you last month. And so I'll just point out a couple of those updates here. And then, of course, we have more details for you as well. But in particular, in response to your comments that were provided last month, we did reduce the size of the light fixtures significantly. We reduced them by approximately 32%. So we went from what was a 5.5-inch diameter fixture to one that's just 3 3/4 inches in diameter. And that's what's shown for you here in this section detail. We also heard your concerns about the potential for visibility of the conduits that are running above the new roofing, and the concern that those would be visible through that glass roofing when seen from above, like you can see from the High Line. So in order to address that, we have added another layer of the black metal cladding below the glass to create a more finished appearance that you're not seeing those conduit runs anymore. So this is a new slide that we've prepared. This is a ground floor reflected ceiling plan. So you're seeing the interior ground floor treatments, but most importantly here, you're seeing the reflected plan of the two marquees on Gansevoort and Washington Street. I do want to note that the marquees are slightly different dimensions. We have the dimensions for you on the sheet. So as you can see, the Gansevoort Street marquee is longer and it's deeper than the one on Washington Street. And as such, the actual fixture, the light fixture locations or light fixture plan are slightly different. So the fixtures are centered on each bay, on each structural bay of the marquee. But as you can see in the plan here, there's 7 fixtures per row proposed for the Gansevoort Street marquee. That's because it's a deeper marquee, while there are only 6 in a row proposed for Washington Street. The light fixture pattern is a design element. It's intended to provide low-level architectural lighting. This is a busy corner. This is a prominent retail space, but it very much is a really intended to be a design element with that low-level lighting. And I do want to clarify, because I know this was a question that came up last month, the fixtures will be on dimmers. They will be dimmed all the time to reduce the light output, and the light output is going to be reduced to 25% of the fixture's capacity. This is also a new detail for you. So this is a longitudinal section cut through the Washington Street marquee. So here you're seeing the entire length of the marquee on Washington Street. You can see each structural bay of the marquee in all these verticals, and then with the light bulb locations shown along with the new roofing system. And I have an enlarged detail for you in just a minute, but I just wanted to land here because I think what's helpful about this detail is you're seeing the scale of the marquee in relation certainly to the storefronts below, but again, we're also seeing the light fixtures centered within those structural bays and seeing that they're very small in comparison to the size and the scale of the overall marquee construction. And so this area that's highlighted in the red dashed line, this slide is that enlarged view, so you can really see the makeup of this new system. So the existing marquee components, these projecting structural members, this back plate, and then the glass roofing, those are all existing marquee elements that are to remain. So nothing is being removed from the existing marquees. Those are all remaining intact. And what we're doing for this project is adding new roofing under the glass, and then we're adding the light fixtures. So within the makeup of the new roofing system, there's going to be that first layer of the black metal cladding. So that's going to block any visibility, again, of the conduit from above. Then there's going to be a space here made of metal studs with plywood sheathing, and it's within that gap that the electrical conduit will be run. So none of that will be visible. And then as the finishing layer, there's going to be a layer of black metal cladding. And then below that, immediately below that, there will be a black painted steel mesh in a grid pattern that will be added to the underside of that black solid cladding. And that's just to give a little bit of, design and architectural expression to the underside of the marquee. And then we have the light fixtures. So as you can see here, the light fixtures are 3 3/4 in diameter. Again, quite small in comparison to the overall bay width of the marquees. The light fixtures are going to be opaque white bulbs. They're 11.2 watts and 1100 lumens. So the wattage in the lumens, that's the capacity of the fixture. That's what you see on the cut sheet, which we have in the appendix. But the fixtures are all going to be on a Kasambi dimming module. So that is going to allow the fixtures to all be dimmed and controlled that way. And as I mentioned before, the fixtures will be dimmed to a 25% output at all times. So the lighting level is going to be 25% of the lighting capacity at all times. So what that's going to do is give off this kind of glow in this very low level of illumination. It's not intended at all to be bright lighting. This is really an architectural design feature, and the intent is really just for this very low level of illumination to be present. And the lights are only going to be turned on 1 hour before store opening, and they're going to be turned off 1 hour after store closing. And the reason that it's going to be on before store opening and after store closing is because there are still going to be employees in the store at those times, but otherwise the fixtures are going to be off. And again, when they're on, they're going to give a very low level of light output. So this is our sample sheet. So this is similar to the sheet that we showed you last month. This is an image of our currently proposed fixture. Again, that 3 3/4 inch diameter fixture. This is the metal mesh that will be installed at the underside of the canopy, of the marquee, on top of this black metal cladding. And then I did just want to note, we updated these samples for the signage based on staff, LPC staff comments. The materials and the finishes haven't changed from when we presented to you last month. LPC staff just asked us to add some clear imagery for what the finishes were that we're proposing. We also have some new renderings for you. So this is a straight on rendering of the Gansevoort frontage, of course, showing the new storefront infill and the signage and the entry lighting, as well as the signage at the marquee. And we can also see here the new roofing system, as well as the lighting proposed at the marquee. And then this is another view, rendered view standing under the marquee, which gives you a little bit more insight into how the underside of the marquee is intended to look. Again, the intent is for this low level of illumination and light fixtures that are small in scale relative to the proportions of the marquee. And to end just an overall view of the building. So happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Maybe the picture of the existing marquee is the easiest to ask my question.
Absolutely. Let me go to that slide. These views are the...
I just want to be sure I'm reading this and the proposal correctly.
Sure.
Now is glass covered as is frequent, right? There's a glass roof on
The roof is glass currently, yes, and that will be maintained.
right. And then, so what you're covering it underneath with the metal.
Yes.
Are the sides on the right-hand side? It appears to be open on the end. Is that correct?
So there is a solid component at the top, and then yes, there is this perforated structural beam.
But at the end of it, is that also perforated?
At the face or on the sides here?
At the face, right there, right there where you were.
This one?
Yeah. That's
yes. So
right.
There's a certain height. There's a certain amount that is solid, and then yes, the rest of.
Are you covering that as well?
Not fully, no. So the ceiling is. I can go to the section if that's helpful.
It looks like in the drawing that it's an absolute solid box. I just want to know what it is.
No. So the new roofing does not come all the way down to the bottom of the marquee. So there's a solid portion here. So this is what we were saying at the top.
Right.
So the new roofing system comes to just below that. And then the rest of this is where it's perforated. So that's going to remain open.
Okay, then go back to the one we just saw.
The photo?
Yeah, I'm frustrated. I don't have a cursor to point with it. Okay, on the left side, if you go, okay. Now there, clearly that's the edge that's facing us.
Yes.
Is that covered in connection with this
No, 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 all the perforations will remain open.
So it's just blackness inside because
Just on the underside, exactly, just on that parallel surface, yes.
The other question is in this one, in what way is this contemporary? Looking at it casually, it looks like a simplified original historic as opposed to a contemporary. In what
I
way
see.
is this one?
What ways is it contemporary?
Yeah.
Well, I think the scale of the structural members, I think the perforated design of the structural members is not something that you see in historic canopies, and certainly the glass roof. So the presence of marquees absolutely is, seen throughout the district. We see lighting and roof modifications to historic marquees, but these marquees themselves are very much of contemporary design and of course on a contemporary building.
Okay, I'd then like to talk about the lighting, and this
Sure.
is then a combination of testimony and comments. You say that the total lumen output is going to be a quarter of the designed output.
That's correct.
And I reckon that it's about 45,000 lumens. Does that sound right? The total? I'm talking about the bigger one now.
So each bulb has a capacity to be 1,100 lumens. So each bulb will be the equivalent of 275 lumens if it's at 25% output.
Okay, then the question is, why install something that's bigger than it needs to be? That's brighter than it needs to be?
Well, this is
very difficult because what we're approving is an installation. Over time, someone can come along and say, "Oh, that's not bright enough. Put it up," and there's no monitoring or control over that. Whereas if we decide that a certain amount of light is acceptable, it would seem that the installation needs to be tied to that amount of light. Otherwise, there's always the possibility of its being 4 times as bright as the present intention. And I can't understand why it can't be from the beginning to be.
Well, sure. I mean, there are standard exterior.
Lamp at home that was a glow with 25 watts. Well, put a 25-watt bulb instead of a bulb in it.
Well, there are, and it's a great question. I'll answer it as best as I can. I think the reality here is, there's an aesthetic intent that, the designer, the lighting designer is looking for here. It also needs to be a fixture that works in an exterior capacity that will work with the dimming module. So this is the fixture that was identified that would, work with the various constraints, and it would be a smaller size, in response to the comments we received last month. And, our client is committing to having these on dimmers at the 25% output.
Right, but you understand my point that once it's there, it's there.
I do understand, but this is the fixture that is being proposed based on their aesthetic and design preferences, and they're committing to putting them on dimmers.
Okay, then others have questions.
Yeah, hi, Julie. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is just my own curiosity about the perforations and what the imagery is meant to suggest, or what that patterning is meant to suggest, or what the intention is of that particular design.
Sure. Yeah. So the mesh is really just about, I think, creating some texture on the underside of.
I'm not talking about the mesh. I'm talking about the perforations on the marquee.
Oh, the ones that are there now?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that I know the answer to that. That was a design decision by BKSK Architects when they designed the
Okay,
building.
that's just my curiosity.
Yeah,
That
I
was-
wish I knew. If I ever find out, I'll let you know.
That's just a bonus question. Okay,
Yeah.
my other question has to do with the lighting
Sure.
and the color temperature of the lights, because
uh-huh.
you know, in the examples, the contextual examples on 9th Avenue and the other one that you showed, you know, I mean, for what it's worth, they were very warm, you know, they were very warm, glowing bulbs suggesting the meat packing district days of old. Looked like some of them were Edison bulbs. But there was a real warmth associated with that. And I'm wondering, you know, of course, with LED lights, it's so easy to be very, very cold. So I'm wondering if you know what the intention here is.
Yes, so the lighting spec calls out the color temperature, and it's a warm white color. So it won't be a yellow, but it will not be completely cool. It'll be a warm white. And I think this rendering is maybe helpful in showing, you know, there's this milky white acrylic that's proposed for the signage on the marquee. You know, the storefronts are dark gray. So I think generally, and even, you know, with the building color and tonality, I think everything on the building is a bit cooler in this particular instance.
Right, okay.
I would
Thank
say
you.
that this rendering is the color, not the brightness, but the color of the light when it's at full, and it would be somewhat modified toward warm as it goes dimmer.
Right. And that's a good point, Chanel. I mean, certainly the idea is that with that 25% output, you do get a little bit more of a glow. So, right, it won't be as bright.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real concern because especially with, you know, so many fixtures, you know, one wouldn't want the effect to be, you know, surgical theater.
And it's definitely not intended to be that at all. It's really, you know, again, more of that kind of design consideration.
All right, thank you. Brian, have you got a question?
Yeah, I sure do. I went up and down Gansevoort. I went up and down Washington Street. I took pictures of all the canopies. I certainly take offense at calling these marquees because marquees are for theaters traditionally. And that was never applied in a meatpacking district. Those were canopies. And there are no lighting fixtures like this in any of the canopies except that one 9th Avenue example, which obviously is contemporary and not traditional or historic. So I find that this is a totally inappropriate application for this meatpacking district. And I don't see any rationale to introduce this to a retail store canopy. But secondly, you have this beautiful glazing on the roof, which allows the sidewalk and the facade to not be in this gloomy condition all day long. And then you're covering it up and making it gloomy. That is contradictory, it seems to me, to wanting to have something that's bright and welcoming. Again, when you go up and down the street, or those canopies that were existing on the buildings with a solid roof, the atmosphere is very much darkened and very much dampened because you don't have the natural light penetrating those roofs. And it's been such a benefit to the district to have less shadow on the stores and less shadow on the sidewalks. And here you have an opportunity, you have an existing glazed roof. it just seems like a design decision that is contrary to all the benefits of being in the meatpacking district. So I really can't support this proposal at all for all those reasons.
Could I amplify on what was just said? I cannot see that this is a contemporary design. It's an interpretation of a historic one. What's contemporary is that unfortunate 9th Avenue one. And I don't think we're obliged to take it as a benchmark of what's acceptable. And further, in that it's, if it's accepted that it's a historic design or a modification of historic design, the jelly jar lights are much more appropriate and in keeping with the design of the marquee that exists, also without the roof, of course. And that these just don't seem to fit in any way with the marquee as it exists. And if it gets more modern, it's because of all the covered up in the blackness, as opposed to having light and air. Are there other comments?
Let's go to the public. Zach Weinstein.
Hello?
Hi, Zach.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, Zach Weinstein, 92 Horatio Street. Yeah, so just a couple of comments about these, about the lighting and the canopies, which is my chief concern about this application. To reinforce what committee members said, one, I am concerned, why do we need to install bulbs that are significantly higher in capacity than the desired end result? Secondly, color temperature. LEDs, to the best of my knowledge, do not in fact warm up as you dim them down. That's true of incandescent bulbs. I am not sure it's true of LED bulbs. I could be wrong, but I agree that whatever bulbs are there, a warm color temperature would be helpful. But my major and primary concern, again, is the number of bulbs. And as other people have said, there is simply no historical precedent for this within the district. The one example that the applicant provides at 5860 9th Avenue, that was grandfathered in when the district was created. Those bulbs are a relatively recent addition. They do not go back to the period of significance for the district. They've always stood out as a sore thumb. And to use that now as a precedent or a basis, an argument in favor of a vastly expanded canopy, a vastly expanded example of a canopy lined with over 100 bulbs, I think would be a terrible mistake. The canopy that in the other example of 52 Gansevoort Street Pastis, that's 2 bulbs per bay, and that seems completely acceptable, particularly since it's the jelly jar bulb. They're very dim, they're very warm. That does seem very much in character. But what's presented by the applicant here with a total of 144 bulbs in the two canopies with modern looking bulbs, it's theatrical. It's going to dominate the street in a manner completely out of keeping with its historic character. And I'd really urge the committee and the applicant actually to go back and reconsider this whole lighting setup. And yes, keeping a translucent roof and having natural light come in does seem like a far superior solution. Thank you.
Let me speak about Zach's point, and thank you, Zach, for that. Grandfather is not quite what that one is. When a district is designated, and we've been through this over and over on Bleecker Street, anyone who's familiar with those will remember it happens frequently. An applicant is not obliged to change anything. But when something is changed, that's when the whole idea of historic comparables that were either approved by the commission or are identifiably historic in character, and that includes modification in a historic period, so that it's highly subjective, but it's easy to identify. It's sort of, you know it when you see it. Therefore, the 9th Avenue is not a bonding example. It exists, yes.
Janelle, may I clarify something just on that point?
Yeah.
The 9th Avenue example, the canopy was there pre-designation, but the lighting was not. The lighting was added after designation. I have
As a
designation.
resident, are you sure about that? Because I have very distinct memories of
The
that.
lighting
being
does
there.
not show up in the designation photos.
Well,
It was
I'm looking at
re-permitted.
the designation report and I mean, they're daytime photos. It's hard to tell.
Right, so in the high resolution photos that are available online, the lighting is not there. And it was replaced under an LPC permit in 2015.
Really? There was certainly no hearing about that.
It was done at staff level.
Nevertheless, we're not obliged to recommend approval for this because that canopy with that lighting was approved.
Oh, understood. I just wanted to clarify for the record the
I
history of that
understand.
example
I
that we
appreciate
included.
that. So we've got a canopy with modified lighting that was since designation. That's stipulated. But what's not obliged is that we can take that and must apply it in all cases, in all canopies in the district. And I think what we're hearing is that it's not thought to be the lighting is not thought to be appropriate for this marquee. Are there other questions, comments? Anyone else from the public?
And Michael
We'll
Tree.
see.
There's another one, Ann Mitchell Tree. Yeah, she moved up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. I don't want to dump up, I can hear everybody's dumping on this and it's just gonna go from bad to worse, but I have to say that just looking at the picture where it says Saint Laurent, I see 2 ground story and first story, and then I see the lights coming out, and my first impression is this could be frankly, it could be in Nordstrom's in Salt Lake City. It could be in Chicago. It could be a Higbee's. There's nothing of what I'm looking at that says historic. When I look at the picture behind Chenault, I can understand that that's historic. I don't see any aspect. I'm telling you, to me, it could be JCPenney's. I don't see anything here that is deep enough or magnificent enough or good enough for Yves Saint Laurent. The lights are still too bright. The lights are too bright. And from what I see on these first 2 floors, I don't see anything that looks historic at all. What part of this is the historic part?
Okay, thank you, Ann.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think unless anybody else wishes to speak, then I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Julie, thank you.
Thank you. Shall we continue committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Business session.
Want to go into the business session, Chanel?
You want to go, do you want to, yes, we'll have, this is the business session. Anyone's welcome to stay, but only committee members can speak. Shall we go backwards since this is so fresh and so much to say?
Sure.
I think the proposal is clear, right? The whereas parts that just state what it is.
Yes.
My notes are numerous and my head has more notes than I wrote. Are we agreed that this is a canopy of a modified historic design?
The existing canopy is a modified historic design. Yes. The proposed canopy is not.
With the, I believe that the metal, the open work, which almost looks like filigree, is simply an adaptation of what one puts in a truss, usually on the diagonal to support it.
Yes.
And it's common to have that sort of construction for the ones that still exist. I want to take just a moment to make those properly.
Which supports Brian's point.
And the roof has the virtue of both design and lightening the neighborhood.
Yes.
The lady who spoke about Nordstrom has a point that we often make, is that it's sacrificing history for branding because they want to look contemporary with their clothes, which is fine. One should look at the Atelier in Paris, which has certain historic elements to it. I'm trying to get everything except the lighting out of the way. We appreciate that the conduit is not seen. Now, we talk a great deal about the technical aspects of the lighting as proposed. I could never understand why, if you want it to be dim, not put in dim bulbs.
Right.
Low voltage, and that would all take care of that easily. If we're going to reject the rows of lights, then that's somewhat moot, but I'll include that. Are we, and Andy, put your thing on so we can be sure to hear you, that everybody's saying, that everybody's agreeing. What I gathered, I'm going to set myself apart from the testimony, is that this design is not approved, and instead it should be something resembling the example shown in the comparison. And the 9th Avenue, there is plenty of reason to not accept it as a valid, because it doesn't fit the existing canopy, which is being made over into a more modern one, which presumably somehow justifies the lighting.
Right, so you're pointing at 52 Gansevoort Street example.
The what?
You're pointing at the 52 Gansevoort Street.
That was on the right of the screen. The one that looks historic, with historic
Yeah,
looking lights.
that's 52 Gansevoort.
I learned that. I never knew what to call them before, but that apparently is the correct name. One might not insist on that, but something that historic evokes history, and in particular, that it be warm. Those bulbs are just wonderful. They're the ones that used to be in the subway.
I mean, I can see where they run into trouble with that, with their unified kind of aesthetic and the building and all of that, but that still doesn't make a kind of harsh, cool light. I know, it's sort of described as being a warm white. It's hard to imagine that it actually is. It's certainly not rendered that way. And anyway, I think pointing to the volume, density, light level, and all of that of 52 Gansevoort makes a lot of sense. And this is just too much. It's too much of everything.
And not only too much, but wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the whole aesthetic is wrong.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, I think our essential problem, we can
on a row like that is still wrong.
to Kingdom Come, but I think our essential problem is the aesthetic of that is theatrical. It evokes a theatrical marquee. It evokes Broadway. It evokes Hollywood movie marquee. It evokes a makeup mirror. It's evocative of a whole different aesthetic. It's not evocative of the historic district aesthetic. And, you know, I realize that with a contemporary building and a modern designer, I mean, although we can discuss Saint Laurent, that's a different conversation. But I understand the problem of synthesizing the old and the new, but you know, we've seen many examples in many different ways where there can be a more respectful synthesis of the two. And I think that this is just too far over the line.
And a lot of it hangs on what's there.
Yeah.
What's there is a modified historic design. It's not that 9th Avenue marquee is already there to put lights into. I mean,
Right.
it's hideous, but it exists, and the lights went in later. It maybe shows how much of a break we want to put on staff approval of things like that.
Yeah.
Which we won't put in this resolution. You know my rules about that. We're agreed that I'll do it up and Susan will check my spelling and we'll be off. Is there more to say? And to say that you agree with all this if you do. Did we lose Andy? I think we did. Okay, going back to the first one that we heard second.
Oh, Sullivan Street.
It seemed like the two things in question are the paving and the material for the grotto cover, whatever it is. It would be nice if we could say something that they wouldn't have to come back if they do what we say.
Right. I think Father, oh, sorry, go on, Chanel. It looks like
Yeah,
you're.
I was going to say that Father had the good idea of taking the rusticated base of the nave as the stone with which the floor should be in sympathy.
Right. I think it's a question of, you know, harmony with what exists, not replication with what exists. But I think that Father Mike's suggestions, which was sort of to replicate it, I think, you know, the architect and we all realize that that's not necessarily the best thing. But I think what he was driving at was a really absolutely right on concept, which is just to create a harmony with what already.
And it's the floor that belongs with that wall.
Yes, exactly. And should be, and you know, it was shared with us that LPC is clearly pushing that the stone choice be a natural stone. And I think we should include that in our recommendation as well. You know, what I think if we do both of those things, they have room, still have plenty of room to work. And we hopefully don't allow for a situation that looks like, one of those Home Depot kind of stone paver suburban situations, which.
I think if we emphasize the naturalness and the harmony with the wall.
Yeah.
And it's clear that the examples of the shrines, wherever they are absolute rustic stones out of the earth.
Yeah.
And if we say that and then ask that it be verified by the staff, is that sufficient without their coming back.
I think so. What do you think, Brian?
Chanel, that I think we should add the wording that the coursing of the stone on the wall of the nave of the original church is an important aspect in order to get this new work to blend in and harmonize with the existing church.
It should look like it was always there.
That's right. So the other grotto examples that they showed are absolutely out of sync with what the church coursing is now. And I believe that at some point, perhaps the architects that provided the stone on the bulkhead for the elevator, the stairway at the side of the church that we're focusing on, they may have chosen a different coursing and a different stone to contrast with the original church. I think it's a mistake. I think it doesn't look like an update of the original. It looks like it's totally discordant, and it's offensive to my eye to see the two different stones juxtaposed like that. So the coursing of the stone is very important. That is going to govern the shape of the stone. And that's the difference between the examples that they showed and the bulkhead walls that they showed and the original. So we want to match the coursing of the original.
Original meaning what's on the side of the church.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, the examples of that were shown in the application and, suggested an entirely third element, which, so I think if you do what you just suggested and we talk about, sort of harmony with the stone in the nave, the stone that's being used on the side of the church. I think Brian's point is right on the money about the coursing. Then I don't think if this resonates at LPEC, and that it would be natural stone, that I don't think we need to kind of sequester this part of the application and have them come back. I'm comfortable with.
And it coincides with what Father Mike said.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think
So
we
we're
have
all on the same page.
we have an agreement.
Yeah.
I need to go away just 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Okay.
That's the same principle that is used whenever, we're trying to match something. You're expected to find a new brick that matches the old brick, a new mortar joint that matches the old mortar joint, and the mortar colors match the old color. So that's the only way to get a
Harmony.
harmonizing.
Yeah.
Good when you're doing something or patching something.
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
I was just
Or did I miss something?
I was just comparing whenever someone wants to add something on or patch something that's missing on a historic building, you match the color of the brick, you match the coursing size, and you match the masonry, the mortar color. And, then you can get something that's going to blend in with the historic fabric. And I think that's what we need there.
The mortar thing drives me crazy when buildings are patched, and for some reason the mortar's always fatter than the historic one right beside it.
Right.
It looks like a white magic marker on a,
Yeah, exactly.
Makes a difference.
there's plenty to work with here, and everybody's of the same spirit about this.
Yeah, yeah.
550 Broadway.
Okay, oh, sorry, go on.
I'm just stating what's up for discussion.
Oh, okay. So we have to really be very clear here that we could be potentially opening up a really regrettable precedent, which would be encouraging these partitions be as a wire around against the restrictions of what is currently labeled signage. So you want something bigger, okay, make it big enough to be a partition. Now you can do what you, I mean, I think we just have to be so careful. And I think this, it's clearly too big. The imagery is clearly too big. It's too bright. We can't have a precedent when we've got things in place that say if the signage can't be more than a certain, if you call it a sign, it can't be more than a certain percentage. But hey, buy this technology and call it a partition and you can do twice as much or a third again as much or whatever the math is. Then everybody will be doing it and these things read like billboards.
I think we'll clarify which of the two projects we're talking about. 512 is the one with the LED signage screens or partitions behind the window. 550 Broadway is
Timberland.
On the surface of the.
But we're talking 512 Broadway now.
Are we talking 512 now?
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I might have read the wrong.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed.
Okay,
I know I read the wrong one. I was just.
Oh, okay,
scrolled
sorry. I jumped the gun, but anyway, 512 is the next one.
Yeah. So all your points are well made. So I'm wondering if in fact there is a standard that this exceeds. I know that the standard of being 18 inches behind the glass has been adhered to, but this is like a billboard and it's an active illuminated billboard.
I'm puzzled as to why.
Community and not handled at staff level because they obviously know at LPC that this is
Somehow the
new territory.
LPC has decided that it has reign over this because she said they're the ones who said it was a petition. So they're entering into it rather than saying this is more than 18 inches, so we're not touching it.
Right.
I can understand why they wouldn't touch a display sign within the showroom that you could see through the window. This is clearly a window sign, and it clearly should not be. And we can hang ourselves on the aesthetics of it, regardless of how many inches anything is. That it disturbs the historic neighborhood, it disturbs the historic building and the historic window and everything else.
Yeah,
and we don't need to get into the inches and feet of it and whether it's a petition or not.
I totally agree. I mean, we know what it reads like. We know that, a wire around calling it a partition, opens up like an on-ramp for an onslaught of billboards.
And I noticed when I went by there, when it's on, you don't see anything through that. There's no transparency there. It looks solid. And so it's on during all of the business hours of the store from 9:30 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Right.
So it's on all the time. And that means that there's no looking into the store through that at all, period.
And that's the miracle of how it's designed.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're talking Broadway at Times Square, it's one thing. If you're talking Broadway in the historic district, it's another Broadway.
Sorry, I wrote all the notes in the wrong one on Broadway. Let me just move them over and I'll be right with you. Now 550 Broadway.
Okay.
For all of the discussion, it looks fine to me. I'm willing to hear contrary opinions.
Well, again, the question comes up, is there an LPC standard that this violates? Are the letters too big? Is the sign too wide? Is there a depth to it that exceeds any kind of standard? I would say that just from man on the street, you look at it, it looks like nothing out of the ordinary. But I am interested to know if we're violating any.
Exactly.
It's kind of a look that the letters extend to the edge of the sign band. You usually think of there being a breadth all the way around.
The appearance of the sign is perfectly okay with me. I just don't want to violate any standards by saying it's okay if it's too big.
Right. I mean, we can't go easier on somebody who's looking for legalization.
That's right.
Than we would. I mean, we've got to go back to our standard here, which is, would we have approved it? And I think because in a typical presentation, the LPC guidelines are referenced by the applicant. I think we need to I would suggest that we conditionally approve the legalization if LPC can substantiate that as the sign as it currently exists is squarely within the LPC guidelines.
And we do that standard with things like the banners and the painting of the wall.
Yeah, I don't think it's complicated. It's just like, if it were so legal, why would it come to the community board? I mean, if it was simply a matter of,
because it's the legalization.
Right.
They'll have to come to us.
Right. Oh, I see. Anyway, I think we need to rely on LPC to verify that it's within their existing guidelines. And if it is, then sure. Doesn't look terrible.
That's right.
If I go back to a minute to Gansevoort Street, clearly it has to come back if our recommendation is respected. The standard and that they return.
Yes.
No. Okay. Anything else?
Not on those applications, just the report.
I wonder if we shouldn't move that to next time when we have more people.
Okay, well, so.
Have you read the report or looked at it?
Yes. So Chenault, I noticed that the map of the historic districts did not include the Weehawken Historic District on the map. So you might just make a note.
Okay. I realize there are a couple just errors, none of them critical, of just not of having learned all about LPC in the space of a couple months.
Right.
I don't even know that needs to be edited, but a couple places are awkwardly worded and misattributions, or we'll see what to do about that, whether we want to change it or.
Right, we can discuss that. I mean, I don't think, it's sort of like a term paper and how far do we go into it? I think the main point is what can we get from it moving and, what's to be learned and what can be utilized moving forward.
Yeah, I would say that the questions that were raised are very pertinent. For instance, we just had a couple of applications where some signage was added that were not permitted, now approved. So they had to come back to legalize it. And I saw in the report that the papaya dog on Sixth Avenue has been in violation for, I don't know, as long as they've been in existence. And what does it take to enforce this? I mean, what good is it to have a violation if it's going to continue to degrade the historic district?
That building on 10th Street, with the blue fence, it's near the corner of Hudson Street. I didn't realize it had so many violations. I knew about the blue fence. And that already existed when, what was her name? The woman from Village Preservation who was there forever, Sarah
Bean Atman.
It existed sometime before she came to the organization. So
Wow.
There's a barbershop up the way that I was brought up on and instructed with it how to write resolutions and things. And it's still exactly as it was.
Yeah, I mean, all this just raises all these other questions about accountability at the commission, like where's the follow through,
I
without that.
think it's sort of like the controller that Mark Levin sends is what is one of the most valuable things of there needs to be accounting from the people who are responsible.
Yeah, and this is just a snapshot, right? I mean, this City College fellow, he had a very limited amount of time, amount of not that many months. He's a student at the end of his.
And every time we put it
I mean, there's only a certain amount that's achievable. So, obviously it's just a snapshot of one among many of the historic districts within CB2. And even as a snapshot, there's clearly a pattern of lack of enforcement, lack of consequence, and so I think that's where this is going to be a real value, particularly if we can expand it or use it as a template for people within the community and within our community board to map things and develop a kind of template so that we can maybe create a sort of a master spreadsheet of, where there's no consequence. I mean, situations that have gone on for years, and some situations are more grievous than others. I mean, that little blacksmith shop on Cornelia Street, which is, a hair's breadth away being condemned, that has been in that condition for 20 years. I mean, I don't even know how long it's been in that situation. And, it is owned by one of the Sackler heirs.
And the Christopher.
They can't fix it.
Yeah. Can't afford it.
And the Gay Street, Christopher Street complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
The absolute poster child for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I talked to Mark a bit about report. Normally, somebody complains and he sends it along to the commission. What I'd suggested growing out of the little survey paper that we did was that we get one on the website that more or less replicates the form as it's laid out for the commission, and ask people to send that to the office so we can easily submit it. And rather than asking them to do it, because then we're able to track what's going on. If we just say, oh, you send a notice to the commission.
So
we
that
don't-
they get aggregated at the community board office and say once a month or once every 2 months or something, there's like a pipeline of these things, you mean?
Well, they can send it when it comes in, but we'll have a record of it. So that we know what people are thinking, which is part of our job.
I see something from Dina at Village Preservation, and yes, Dina, I have seen that sign and was horrified. I mean, absolutely horrified. So it makes me very happy to hear that you got LPC to issue a violation. But yeah, the question that follows that.
I didn't hear which sign.
Dina put into the chat, have you seen the new Pizza Funhouse sign on West 8th and 6th Avenue? It looks terrible.
Oh, yeah.
We
I
got,
took a
they
picture.
got, Village Preservation got LPC to issue a violation, but Dina asked the question, how long will it take for the owners to actually remove it? Which is,
And that's when we're not going to say it's okay.
yeah,
All right.
no kidding.
Yeah, that was and clearly it was just put up there.
Yeah,
And also and then we'll have a sort of record of serving the community by doing this if it goes through us, which I think is important to
I agree.
illustrate that we're proactive about this.
Right, and to the, big issue here, which is accountability. I mean, I think, it's,
And in the end, there are not enough of them that it's going to be a burden on the office. No, they're not 20 a week coming in. And
right.
Right.
I mean, and if it turns out there are, then obviously, look at that, but I doubt that it will be.
and then maybe a next step would be for us to do some letter writing campaign about the lack of enforcement.
Yeah,
Expose.
I mean, even
I
to
learned something very interesting today, somewhat related. The head of LPC is not a commissioner, which I'd always thought.
Oh,
Is a chair.
chair,
And
right?
the reason it said, in the thing Mark sent around said that the, whatever that other agency was, buildings. And the
DOB.
commissioner, and then it said, and the chair of LPC. And I'd always thought that was a commissioner position.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know about.
Next week, I looked at it, doesn't look terribly contentious. It's sort of in harmony with the building next door. Have you all
Yeah.
looked at it?
I had a quick look in the just sort of, oh, how bad is this department? And, I didn't faint.
It's next door to the corner building on McDougal Street.
The new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's not like it's certainly not like Fifth Avenue where something really serious is being demolished.
Why didn't they get their hands on the property and make a bigger one while they were at it? But maybe this is better. That sort of gives a rhythm to the street.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll continue the discussion about this report when hopefully there will be a fuller,
just the quorum.
or at least a forum on Monday. Okay,
Nobody said today that they couldn't come, except for Brendan. That they couldn't come on Monday, if they didn't come.
they're gonna come on Monday. Yeah, I haven't heard from anybody that they couldn't come on Monday, but everybody else notified us.
We will not get to this until Saturday, but I'll get to it Saturday morning.
Okay,
Okay,
no worries. All right.
thank you, Vask.
Night. Good night. Let's
Come without fear of infection for the number of people.
Yes.
Yeah, we're done.
Here, I didn't see you. Yeah, I was gonna come and sit down. Thank you, Mark. Night.
Is Mark still here?
Mark is here.
Oh, okay, you can shut us down now.
That's what I'm doing, unless there's something else.